You can win your fantasy baseball league by identifying undervalued pitchers who other people are ignoring, and by identifying pitchers on your team who are really overvalued or getting a little lucky that maybe it's time to trade while their stock value is high. This video was actually suggested by a subscriber comment, Patrick Hennessy 8022. Shout out to him asking for this kind of video. I did one similar for hitters and now one for pitchers. The way that I do it is we go into Baseball Savant. We go to expected statistics leaderboard, but for pitchers, the challenge is, at least if we're looking for starting pitching for today's video, you're going to get tons and tons of relievers to sort through, right? So what I like to do is the same thing we kind of did in the last video, qualified balls in play. And I already kind of previewed this. If you go to 150, you really narrow it down to only 27 pitchers. Let's do 100. It should weed out most of the closers and middle relievers. So now what you see here is all the kind of starting pitchers you expect. Still a lot of them here, obviously with Paul Skeens, Ohtani. And then the way I like to do this is to kind of the same kind of thing. Let's look at your ERA versus expected ERA and the difference. So in this case, with an ERA of 2.10 and expected ERA of 5.74, Michael McGreevy, who I've seen flying off of some of the waiver wires, is actually getting way too lucky. And especially with a cold 372 xWOBA, that's a solid above average xWOBA for a hitter. You can see here for pitchers, it's about 320 expected xWOBA. So he is a below average expected pitcher right now, but with a 210 ERA, lots of people only looking at traditional stats are jumping on this. So we'll take a look at his stat line before we show you some other plays, really just how to do this. So Michael McGreevy, a solid 2.10 ERA, 0.88 WHIP. However, when you look at this side, this is really terrible. His statcast data, he does have a solid walk rate. He does not walk a lot of hitters, so that will help his WHIP a little bit. However, his expected ERA is 5.74. Huge gap. That's why he's the luckiest player right now, and for all the starting pitchers so far, with a 2.10 ERA, but an expected 5.74. Just pitching the way he's been pitching, he is ice cold and expected batting average. His fastball velocity is only like 91. Average exit velocity is, mid 50th percentile. His whiff rate, strikeout rate is really low. It's really just the solid walk rate and the solid extension, but everything else looks really poor, and he is destined for some kind of regression really soon. Especially looking compared to his historical levels, previous years, he hasn't been great. He's at an ERA last year of 4.42, when really the barrel rate he was only giving up in 2025 was 8.8%. But so far in 2026, he's had an 11.2% barrel rate, which is absolutely terrible. His expected slugging this year is 542 versus 457 last year. All those things signal a higher ERA than what he had last year, when he had a 4.42 actual ERA and a 4.67. So this is a way of looking at identifying. There are so many times where you can see managers who just look at traditional stats will see Michael McGreevy and say, oh, look at this, St. Louis has this amazing pitcher with a great ERA, great whip. That's exactly what I need. It is fool's gold. It is fake data. It's destined for coming back down to earth, and these are the types of players we want to avoid. So who are the players we should take a look at? So if you have some of these players, I know Davis Martin was a hot pick up for a while too. He has a 1.62 ERA. The expected ERA is a passable 3.90, and then really average to just slightly below average xWOBA. So maybe this isn't someone you cut, but just expect a little bit of regression coming in, more to like an average pitcher versus this above average data that you're getting. Let's take a look at his underlying data and see the reasons for the same kind of thing. So his chase rate is excellent. He's fooling batters, but with more data, more times they see him, that may not work for a long period of time. He's getting a great strikeout rate, really low walk rate. Those things are fantastic, but the rest of the data is average or below average. So his barrel rate is, right at average, 7.9%. Hard hit rate is 45%. Average exit velocity is 93, fastball velocities, 90.6, fastball velocity 93.6, and expected ERA, that's kind of a middling, average, 53rd percentile, 3.90. So he's still going to be a pretty average pitcher, but not really the breakout stud that he's looked like he's been so far, as a huge waiver wire target for people. So if you have him and you think you could flip him to somebody for something that you need, whether it's a closer or an injury somewhere, this might be the opportunity to do that, because he's going to be okay. He's going to be worth rostering. No one's going to come back and complain to you that you sold them on a lemon, but he's just not going to be as good as his data has been so far. and that might be an opportunity for you to get an advantage for your team. But let's look at players who have been, really a little unlucky. You can see here players like Chris Paddock, who actually lost his job with Miami. That's actually kind of funny that they moved on from him. His ERA was a terrible 7.63. I can see why, but as expected is reasonable. Still not solid 4.32. But when I do this, I like to look for unlucky ERAs with players who have or from expected weighted on base average. So let's do it this way. People who have a terrible expected weight on base average, and still you can look for this reds, but people are below average, so below this 321 expected weighted on base average for an average pitcher. And so I would say the player that jumps out here is Jacob Lopez. Jacob Lopez has a 5.8 ERA, but it really says a solid 3.56 is what's expected, and he has certainly a solid below average xwOBA of 3.01. So let's take a look at him and see if this is someone. Obviously, I don't like the idea of people pitching a lot in AAA ballparks. This is a very interesting profile because you can see his expected batting average is low 2.09. His average exit velocity is really low, 85.4. That's fantastic. His barrel rate is only 5.3. That's good. Hard hit rate is 30.1, and he has an amazing extension, so the ball kind of jumps on people. However, everything else is really terrible. Only a 90 fastball velocity. Lefties may be able to get away with that if they're a crafty lefty, but not a good chase rate, strikeout rate, or walk rate. So if you're in some rotisserie leagues, he's really not going to help you in strikeouts and things like that. But possibly better than what he's doing right now, 5.8 ERA, 1.71 WHIP. So maybe this is someone either you stream or you just put on a watch list and check it out if you really need something. But there's some interesting things here. But I get scared of this not so great chase rate, strikeout rates, and a really high walk rate, especially playing in a AAA ballpark with the Athletics. But the types of guys you want to look at is obviously someone like Mike Burrows. But let's look to find someone really well undervalued. Well, Christopher Sanchez, that might be hard to come by. But you can see here his xwOBA is 30 points higher than where he is, but his ERA is 2.11. The expected ERA is only 2.77. There may not be a whole lot of value there. Let's go back to the ERA side and see who we can find that it starts to get decent. So Reed Detmers, here's one that's been interesting for a while on the waiver wires, kind of picked up and dropped, at least in my league. He currently has a not so solid 4.38 ERA, but his expected ERA is 3.19. He does have a solid below average weighted on base average of 3.05, but his expected weighted on base average is even more solid, 2.86. So let's look under the hood here and see what's been going on with him. And you can see here, this is a solid streamer pickup. So nothing really elite here in this profile, but his StatCast data is average to above average in almost everything. So this is someone you could definitely stream if you have some injuries, or you could pick up for a little bit if someone's on the IL, a situation like that. But his expected ERA is 3.19, expected batting average is 220. So, everything's pretty average. Strikeout rate, almost 25%. Walk rate, 8% is pretty solid. But this is someone that you could definitely stream for a little while and see how they'll do, and probably available on the waiver wires. I think got dropped in our league because of that 4.38 ERA. 1.26 WHIP is not really that bad. So this is someone to at least put on your watch lists and see if you want to stream them, or if you have some injuries you need to replace. That's an example of the type of profile that we're looking for here. And let's look for some other one whose expected ERA is pretty solid. Max Fried, he's not going to be available from people or anything like that, but he is also doing, getting a little bit unlucky with his ERA at 3.21, still solid. Let's see if we can find someone else here. Jeffrey Springs has always been popping up on these lists. I had him for a little while. I was streaming him, or at least for a few spot starts with some injuries. But he is a 4.22 ERA with an expected ERA of 3.58 and a 3.02 xwOBA, so that's solid. Let's take a look under the hood for Jeffrey Springs. The challenge with him is you lefties with this low fastball velocity, only 91, they can get away with it if they have decent movement. And you can see his strikeout rate's only average because of that slow fastball velocity of only 91.3, but his expected ERA is 3.58. His current ERA is 4.22 with a 1.22 WHIP. That's not terrible. His barrel rate's pretty average, strikeout rate's average, walk rate's pretty solid. So this is someone you could potentially stream. I would probably prefer that on the road versus home because, again, with the Athletics, you're going to be in a AAA ballpark. But this is someone I had for a little while within the last month or so, but have since moved on from. But at least put on your watch list, stream for injuries. I'm trying to see if we can find a really juicy potential someone that you could keep for a while that people aren't going to know about. And I know Jansen Junk has been discussed recently. So he has a 3.74 expected ERA, 4.14 actual ERA, but a solid 3.08 xWOBA. So let's see Jansen Junk. This is not amazing, pretty average, below average strikeout. So if you're in a strikeout league, he's not going to get you a whole lot of strikeouts or strikeouts per 9. If you're in that ratios, he does not walk anybody, which is great. His barrel rate's, pretty solid, above average, only 6.4%. Hard hit rate's pretty high. He's really living off of getting a lot of ground balls since he's not getting you strikeouts. I'm in a league that strikeouts kind of come in a premium, so maybe this isn't someone you would look for in that type of format. Let's see who else is up here. Kevin Gausman, Brett Lauder, Shane Calbradish. Actually, let's go to. Let me see if I can find anyone else before I move on to. Here's one more I can give you who's just kind of came up. So River Ryan is probably about to get called up by the Dodgers, potentially, depending on their injuries. No, not Joe Ryan. And he has always had a pretty good profile. He is a really fast fastball. Let's see if there's any data in here so far. So he has hasn't been in the majors since 2024, but he does have an amazing fastball. Let's see if he has any AAA stats data. Let me quickly pop over here and take a look at River Ryan. So the prospect savant is where you want to go. Because I heard he had some amazing starts. Now look at this. So River Ryan in AAA so far this year. Let's look what the stats are. Obviously it's only 11 innings pitched, so let's take it with a grain of salt. But he has a 29% strikeout rate, only 6.3% walk rate. His average exit velocity is only 82, so that's fantastic. So all this stuff looks pretty solid from his xWOBA, batting average, expected slugging. He is above average to elite in all these profiles here. So he's getting a really good low walk rate, decent strikeout rate. Anytime your strikeout to walk rate is above 20, that's someone you really want to consider. So 29% strikeout rate, only 6% walk rate, so that's 23. So that's an amazing number. I know it's only AAA. Will it translate to the majors? But that's a signal that they are striking out a lot of people. They're not walking a lot of people, and that usually will translate into excellent profile. Keeping people off of bases, that helps your whip. You're generating a lot of strikeouts, which helps you in your strikeout leagues, and hopefully helps you get out of innings to keep your ERA low. So he might be someone that you may want to gamble on, whether they call him up to cover for some of their injuries. I think it's Snell that's out for a little while, but he's someone else that's always been interesting to me. So this is the way you look at pitcher data to see who is a little bit unlucky and who you may want to avoid, like McGreevy, what we looked at earlier. So subscribe to this channel if you want to win your fantasy baseball leagues, and check out this next video because this is what YouTube says you'll want to see next.